Then she accidentally texted her boss, calling him sexy and arrogant. And his reaction left her speechless. Before we dive into the story, leave a comment and tell us what city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. The alarm clock rang at 5:30 a.m. as usual. Maria Flores opened her eyes in the small room she shared with her younger sister in their rented apartment in the Bronx, New York. The rumble of traffic already echoed through the poorly sealed windows, mixing with the sound of the TV in the living room, where her mother watched the morning news before heading out to her first of 2 jobs. She got up silently, took a quick shower in the shower that alternately scalded and froze without warning, and put on the grey suit she had bought on an installment plan of 12 payments. It was the 3rd she owned, all bought with the same sacrifice, because working at TechVision Enterprises demanded an impeccable appearance. Each piece of clothing was a calculated investment, every dollar spent considered 3 times. In the kitchen, she prepared the strong black coffee that would sustain her until lunch, and put the bagel with cream cheese in her bag for her meal. Her mother, Rosa, appeared wearing her cleaning uniform, her hair already tied up under a hairnet. "Honey, the electricity bill arrived." "It's on the fridge," she said, avoiding her daughter's worried look. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll take care of it when I get back," Maria replied, knowing that once again she would have to juggle her salary. The bus ride to Midtown took an hour and 40 minutes. Maria used the journey to mentally review the day's agenda, Lucas Thorne's meetings, the reports she needed to prepare, the phone calls she should make. She had been working as a junior executive assistant for 2 years, and every day was a trial by fire. Lucas was demanding, a perfectionist, and did not tolerate mistakes. He was also, she admitted in her most secret thoughts, the most impressive man she had ever met. The mirrored building of TechVision rose imposingly in the most upscale area of the city. 32 floors of pure corporate power, where decisions made moved millions and influenced thousands of lives. Maria always felt a pang in her chest when entering the marble lobby. She did not belong to that world, but had earned her place through hard work and dedication. On the 28th floor, where the executive suite was located, the atmosphere was even more intimidating. Glass walls, Italian-designed furniture, and a silence that suggested absolute efficiency. Maria always arrived 40 minutes before Lucas to ensure that everything was perfect when he arrived. At 8 o'clock sharp, the elevator doors opened and Lucas Thorne emerged as always. Impeccable suit, erect posture, determined look. At 35, he had built a tech empire from a small office, and his presence commanded immediate respect. He greeted Maria with an almost imperceptible nod and went to his office. "Good morning, Mr. Thorne. Your first meeting is at 9 with the development team. The reports are on your desk, and the coffee is ready," Maria said, maintaining the professional tone she had perfected. Lucas stopped and stared at her for a moment, as if seeing her for the first time. "Are the numbers from the upstate branch correct?" "Last night I received conflicting information," he asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone who did not accept inaccuracies. "I checked 3 times, sir. The data is correct. I can request additional confirmation if you wish," Maria replied, feeling the weight of his gaze on her. "That won't be necessary," Lucas said, and went into his office. The day passed at a frenetic pace. Maria coordinated 6 meetings, reorganized 2 last-minute cancelled appointments, and mediated 3 complicated international calls. During lunch, she stayed at her post eating her bagel while finalizing reports, because Lucas might need something at any moment. At 3 in the afternoon, the crisis broke out. One of the company's largest clients, dissatisfied with a delay in the delivery of software, threatened to cancel the $1 million contract. The emergency meeting was called, and all the tension of the office focused on the conference room. Maria watched through the glass wall as Lucas commanded the situation. His intelligence was fascinating to watch. He disassembled complex problems like someone solving puzzles, his mind working at impressive speed. But there was also a coldness in his gestures, a distance that separated him from everyone around him. During the meeting, she noticed an error in the contracts that had been presented. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but could compromise the entire negotiation. Her heart raced. Should she interrupt? Lucas had made it clear that he did not tolerate interference during important meetings. But if she didn't speak, the company could lose the client. She took a deep breath and gently knocked on the glass door. Lucas stared at her with obvious irritation, but gestured for her to enter. With a firm voice, despite her frayed nerves, Maria pointed out the error in the contract clause. The room was silent for seconds that seemed eternal. Lucas checked the information, and his face changed. The error had been detected in time. The negotiation was saved, the client appeased, and the contract signed. When everyone left the room, Lucas remained seated, looking at Maria. "How did you notice that?" And he asked, genuinely intrigued. "I always review all the documents 3 times, sir." "It's a habit," she replied, trying to disguise the tremor in her voice. "A habit that saved $5 million today," Lucas said, and for the first time since she worked there, something that looked almost like a smile crossed his face. That night on the bus back home, Maria reflected on the day. She had proven her worth once again, but she knew that this would not change her reality. She would still share the room with her sister. She would still calculate to pay the expenses. She would still be just the efficient assistant that Lucas barely noticed. But something had changed in his gaze when she saved the meeting. A spark of recognition, perhaps even respect. It was little, but for someone who fought every day to prove that she deserved to be in that place, it was enough to fuel the hope that her effort one day would be truly valued. The following week, the routine returned to normal, but Maria perceived that something had subtly changed. Lucas occasionally stared at her longer than necessary, as if trying to decipher an enigma. During meetings, he sometimes asked her opinion on details he previously resolved alone. They were small gestures, almost imperceptible, but she noticed them. It was a particularly chaotic Thursday. 3 important meetings on the same day, a presentation to international investors, and Lucas was visibly tense. Maria had arrived even earlier, ensuring that every detail was perfect. At 10 in the morning, when the second meeting ended turbulently with a dissatisfied client, the entire office seemed to carry electricity in the air. Lucas passed by her desk like a hurricane, his hair slightly disheveled for the first time since she had known him. "I need the financial reports from the last quarter in 15 minutes, and confirm that the video conference with Tokyo is working," he said, his voice harsher than usual. "They are already ready, sir, and the connection has been tested 3 times, Maria replied, handing him the perfectly organized documents. He stopped, looked at her with an expression she couldn't decipher, and then went to his office without a word. At 2 in the afternoon, during her lunch break, Maria was in the small interior garden of the building, trying to relieve the tension of the day. Her friend Jessica had called, worried because they hadn't spoken in a week. "Maria, are you okay? Your voice sounds strange," Jessica said from the other end of the line. "Oh, Jess, it's this job. It's consuming me," Maria sighed, sitting on a secluded bench. "Today is terrible. My boss is impossible, more than normal. The one you always talk about, the hotshot CEO." Maria laughed, feeling relieved to be able to vent. "That's him. You know what's worse? He's unbearably attractive and he knows it. I don't know how to explain it." "Yes, you do, go on," Jessica encouraged, curious. "He's so sexy, Jess, seriously, but he's so arrogant too. That combination is unbearable. I get irritated with myself for finding him attractive when he's so superior, you know, like he's from another planet." What Maria didn't realize was that, in the rush to answer the phone, she had forgotten to turn off the headset from the internal communication system on her desk. And Lucas, trying to locate her for an urgent demand, had activated the intercom just as she began to speak. On the 28th floor, Lucas froze in his executive chair. Maria's voice came through clearly through the system, each word echoing in his silent office. "He's so sexy, but he's so arrogant too. Something between shock, amusement, and a strange satisfaction took over him. For 2 years, he had assumed that Maria saw him only as another demanding boss, perhaps even feared him. The idea that she found him attractive had never crossed his mind, just as he never imagined that she considered him arrogant in such a frank way. The conversation continued on the other side. "I shouldn't be saying this, Jess. He's my boss, for God's sake. But sometimes he looks at me in a way that I don't know. It totally confuses me. And today he was so stressed I almost felt like what?" Jessica asked. "Like giving him a hug," Maria admitted, laughing at herself. "Ridiculous, right? He'd fire me on the spot if he knew I thought of him that way." Lucas turned off the intercom, his heart beating strangely in his chest. He remained still for several minutes, processing what he had heard. Maria thought he was sexy and arrogant, and apparently wanted to comfort him when he was stressed. A mixture of emotions hit him. There was something deeply honest in those unfiltered words, an authenticity that he rarely found in his corporate world of calculated praise and self-serving smiles. And the way she cared about him, even though she found him arrogant, touched something in his chest that he didn't know existed. When Maria returned to her desk 15 minutes later, she found Lucas standing next to her chair, an indecipherable expression on his face. Her blood froze instantly when she saw the intercom headset on. "Mr. Thorne, she began, her voice failing when she realized the situation. "I need to talk to you." "In my office. Now," Lucas said, his voice too controlled. Maria followed him with trembling legs, feeling as if she were walking to her own professional funeral. Termination was certain. 2 years of hard work, of proving her worth, of supporting her family, all destroyed by a few minutes of unguarded venting. In his office, Lucas closed the door and positioned himself behind the desk, his arms crossed. Silence stretched for eternal seconds as he studied her. "So," he said finally, "I'm sexy and arrogant." Maria's face burned with shame.
"Sir, I can explain."
"I was an unbearable," Lucas continued, something that might have been amusement playing in his dark eyes. I was venting to a friend. I didn't know the intercom was on. It was a terrible mistake, and I take full responsibility," she stammered, the words tumbling out. Lucas walked to the window, his hands in his pockets, leaving her in suspense. When he turned around, his expression had changed completely. "You know what impressed me the most?" He asked, his voice softer. "It wasn't calling me sexy, although it was unexpected. It was the fact that you wanted to comfort me when you realized I was stressed." Maria blinked, confused. This was not the reaction she expected. "In 2 years working here," Lucas continued, "you're the first person who has shown to genuinely care about my well-being. Not just my approval or what I can offer. Sir, She tried to speak, but he raised his hand. "You're right, you know. About me being arrogant. Maybe it's time to rethink some things," he said, a half smile touching his lips. "But first, I need to know. Did you really want to give me a hug?" The question caught her completely off guard. The vulnerability in his voice, the way his eyes stared at her with a new intensity, all of that crumbled her carefully constructed defenses. She sighed, giving up on lying. "Yes, you looked like you needed one." Something fundamental changed in the air between them at that moment. Lucas stared at her as if seeing her for the first time, and Maria realized that maybe her professional life wouldn't end there. Maybe, impossibly, she was just beginning something completely new. In the days following the incident, as Maria began to call it mentally, everything changed, subtly but undeniably. Lucas hadn't fired her, but his presence had become more present. Where there had previously been professional indifference, there were now lingering glances, almost imperceptible smiles, and an attention that left her simultaneously flattered and nervous. The following Monday, Maria arrived at the office to find a gourmet coffee on her desk, still warm, next to a small card, "For the person who cares when I'm stressed, LT." She looked around, confused, but Lucas hadn't arrived yet. When he emerged from the elevator at 8 o'clock, he greeted her with a "Good morning, Maria," the first time he had used her name in 2 years of work. "Good morning, sir. Thank you for the coffee," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I thought you deserved something better than the machine coffee," he replied, stopping in front of her desk. "By the way, I have a meeting with investors on Thursday. I would like you to participate, not just as an assistant, but contributing with your observations." Maria blinked, surprised. "Sir, you saved a negotiation last week. Your perspective is valuable," Lucas said, and there was something different in his voice, a consideration she had never heard before. Throughout the week, small gestures were repeated. Lucas began to ask her opinion on decisions he previously made alone. He stopped by her desk for conversations that went beyond the strictly professional, asking about her background, her plans, even commenting on the New York traffic. It was as if he were trying to get to know the person behind the efficient assistant. Maria found herself looking forward to these moments, but also struggling with the guilt she felt. When she arrived home at the apartment in the Bronx, where her mother still woke up at 5 in the morning to clean offices, reality hit her. Lucas belonged to a completely different world than hers. He lived in a penthouse on the Upper East Side, frequented restaurants where she would spend a month's salary on a meal, and associated with women from New York high society. "Honey, you're different," Rosa observed one night while they were eating rice, beans, and fried egg. "More, I don't know, more animated." "It's work, Mom. They're giving me more responsibilities," Maria lied, unable to explain the truth. On Thursday, the meeting with the Japanese investors was a milestone. Maria, wearing her best suit and with her heart racing, sat next to Lucas in the imposing conference room. During the presentation, he genuinely asked her opinion on expansion strategies, and she surprised everyone, including herself, with accurate analyses and innovative suggestions. "Excellent work," Lucas whispered in her ear when the meeting ended, and she felt a shiver run down her spine. But it was on Friday that everything got complicated. Maria was organizing the files in Lucas' office when Ashley Davenport, his ex-girlfriend and the daughter of a prominent businessman, appeared without warning. Tall, blonde, elegant, wearing a dress that cost more than Maria's annual salary, Ashley entered as if she owned the place. "Lucas, darling, we need to talk," Ashley said, completely ignoring Maria's presence. "Ashley, I'm working," Lucas replied, visibly annoyed. "I've heard interesting rumors about you and your assistant," Ashley said, casting a disdainful look at Maria. "I hope it's not true. It would be so inappropriate." Maria's blood boiled, but she maintained her professional composure. Lucas, however, stood up abruptly. "Maria is an exceptional professional and deserves all respect," he said, his voice cutting. "And I don't have to justify my decisions to anyone." Ashley laughed, a clear and cruel sound. "Of course, darling. Just be careful not to confuse gratitude with other things. People like her can take advantage of the situation." The phrase hit Maria like a punch. All her insecurities about the class difference between her and Lucas came to the surface. Without a word, she finished organizing the files and left the room, her face burning with humiliation. Lucas found her in the small interior garden of the building 15 minutes later. She was sitting on the same bench where she had made the fateful call, staring at her trembling hands. "Maria," he said, sitting next to her. "Don't listen to what Ashley said. She's being realistic?" Maria interrupted, finally looking at him. "Lucas, Sir, we need to talk about what's happening here." "What's happening is that I'm getting to know an extraordinary woman who has been under my nose for 2 years, he said, sincerity shining through in every word. "A woman who lives in the Bronx, shares a room with her sister, and whose mother cleans offices to survive," Maria replied. "A woman who doesn't belong to your world and never will. So what?" And Lucas asked, turning to face her completely. "Do you think that matters to me?" "It should matter," she whispered. "To both of us." Lucas was silent for a moment. Then he reached out and gently touched her face. "You know what impresses me most about you? Your honesty. In a world full of people trying to impress me, you call me arrogant. In an environment where everyone agrees with me, you point out my mistakes. That's priceless, Maria. Lucas, She started, but he shook his head. I don't know exactly what's happening between us, he admitted. But I know I don't want it to stop. I know that when you smile, my day gets better. I know that your intelligence challenges me in ways I haven't experienced in years. And I know that when Ashley tried to diminish you today, I felt an anger that surprised me. Maria felt tears forming in her eyes. This is crazy, Lucas. We're from different worlds. Then maybe it's time for me to get to know your world, he said, surprising her. And maybe you can teach me to be less arrogant. She laughed through her tears, a mixture of hope and fear taking over her heart. You don't know what you're getting into. I'm willing to find out, Lucas said, and for the first time since they met, Maria saw genuine vulnerability in his eyes. If you're willing to give me a chance. At that moment, sitting in the garden with the most powerful man she knew asking for an opportunity, Maria realized that she was about to embark on the most frightening and exciting journey of her life. The first date happened the following Saturday. Lucas insisted on getting to know Maria's world, and she, against her better judgment, agreed to meet him in Washington Square Park, far from the fancy restaurants he frequented. Seeing Lucas Thorne getting out of his black BMW amidst the crowds of Greenwich Village was surreal. He wore jeans and a polo shirt, trying to look casual, but still stood out like a museum piece at a county fair. It's different than I imagined, he said, watching the movement around him. It's real life, Lucas. For most people, Maria replied, still unsure about having accepted that date. They walked through the streets, stopped at a simple diner where Maria always ate with her friends and talked for hours. Lucas asked genuine questions about her life, her family, her dreams, and Maria found herself gradually relaxing. There was something comforting about seeing him outside of his environment of power, more human, more accessible. You're different here, she observed while they shared a basket of fries. Better or worse? And he asked, smiling. More you, she said, and his smile widened. For 2 weeks they met discreetly. Lucas learned to drink diner coffee in thick mugs, tried a donut at the local bakery in Maria's neighborhood, and she discovered that he was funnier and less arrogant than she imagined. At the office, they maintained professionalism, but there was an electricity in the air that any observant person could perceive. It was Ashley Davenport who noticed first and decided to act. On Monday morning, Maria arrived at work to find a group of colleagues whispering near the coffee machine. The conversation stopped abruptly when she passed, but the glances followed her. Her stomach clenched with a bad feeling. At 9 in the morning, Robert Silverman, the HR director, appeared at her desk. Maria, I need to talk to you. In my office. Robert's office was small and claustrophobic. He closed the door and sat behind the desk, a serious expression on his face. Certain irregularities in your professional behavior have come to my attention. What kind of irregularities? Maria asked, although she already knew the answer. Your inappropriate closeness with Mr. Thorne. There are employees reporting that you have been seen together outside of the workplace, in situations that go beyond the professional relationship. Maria's heart sank. Mr. Silverman, I can explain. There's no explanation needed, he interrupted. The company has clear policies about relationships between employees of different hierarchies, especially when it involves the CEO. But we haven't done anything wrong, she protested, her voice higher than she intended. Perception is reality in the corporate world, Maria, and the perception is that you are taking advantage of your position for personal gain. Ashley's words echoed in her mind. People like her can take advantage of the situation. Humiliation washed over her. What does this mean for my job? She asked, trying to maintain her composure. For now, you will be transferred to another department, away from Mr. Thorne. It's for everyone's good. Maria left Robert's office feeling as if she had been punched in the stomach. The transfer meant a significant salary reduction, loss of responsibilities, and the end of 2 years building her reputation. But worse than that was the way her colleagues looked at her now as an opportunist who had seduced the boss to climb the career ladder. When Lucas arrived and found out what had happened, his fury was immediate and devastating. He stormed into Robert's office like a hurricane. "How dare you transfer my assistant without my authorization?" he roared. "Mr. Thorne, it's company protocol. We have to protect both you and Ms. Flores from possible accusations," Robert replied, visibly nervous. "Accusations of what?" "Of her doing her job exceptionally well." "Sir, there are rumors about personal involvement." Lucas was silent for a moment, his face hardening. "And who started these rumors?" Maria knew the answer, even before Robert stammered, "Well, Ms. Davenport expressed some concerns." That afternoon, Ashley appeared in Lucas's office with a triumphant smile. "Darling, I did it for your own good. That girl was clearly taking advantage of you." "Get out," Lucas said, his voice dangerously low. "Lucas, be reasonable. You are one of the most powerful men in the country. You can't compromise yourself with a secretary from the Bronx. Think about your reputation, the company." I said, "Get out." But the damage was already done. The following Monday, a gossip column in a major newspaper ran a small note. Rumors about TechVision's CEO and an employee create embarrassment at the company. Sources close suggest that disciplinary measures have been taken. Maria read the note on the subway on her way to work and felt her life collapsing. Now it wasn't just office gossip, it was public. Her family would find out, her friends, the entire community where she lived. When she arrived at the new department in accounting on the 15th floor, she was greeted with curious glances and malicious whispers. "That's her," she heard someone comment. "The one who was with the CEO." Throughout the week, Maria tried to keep her head up, but the comments and glances were destroying her self-esteem. At home, her mother had asked questions that she didn't know how to answer, and her younger sister had arrived crying because schoolmates were making jokes about the sister who seduced the boss. Lucas tried to reach out to her several times, but she avoided any contact. Every time she saw him, she remembered the price she was paying for allowing herself to dream beyond her station. On Friday, he finally cornered her in the parking garage. "Maria, we need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," she said, avoiding his eyes. "This was a mistake from the beginning." "It wasn't a mistake at all," Lucas insisted. "What they did to you is unfair, and I'm going to fix it." "How?" She exploded, finally facing him. "Are you going to make an official statement saying it's not true? Are you going to fire half the company for gossiping? Are you going to erase the article from the newspaper? If it's necessary, Lucas, don't you understand? It doesn't matter what you do now. I'll always be the secretary who slept with the boss to get ahead. That mark will never come off of me. So you're going to give up because of what others think?" The tears that she had held back all week finally escaped. "I don't have a choice. You can afford to ignore other people's opinions. I can't. I have a family to support, a reputation to protect. And now I don't know if I'll ever get another decent job." Lucas tried to touch her, but she pulled away. "Maria, it was a beautiful dream," she whispered, her voice broken. "But dreams don't pay bills or feed families. Some bridges shouldn't be crossed, and I should have known that." She got into her used car and drove away, leaving Lucas alone in the parking garage, realizing that perhaps there were obstacles that not even all his power and money could overcome. 2 weeks had passed since the confrontation in the parking garage. Maria had completely isolated herself, performing her new duties in accounting with mechanical efficiency, but avoiding any unnecessary interaction. The stares and whispers had diminished, but the pain remained latent. She had seriously considered quitting, but the financial reality was relentless. She couldn't afford to be unemployed. Lucas, in turn, had become even more withdrawn and irritable. His employees walked on eggshells, and meetings became tense and unproductive. He had fired Robert Silverman for administrative incompetence, but this only increased the rumors about his emotional instability. It was on a rainy Thursday afternoon that Mr. Jones, the night watchman who had worked at TechVision for 15 years, appeared discreetly at Maria's desk at the end of the day. He was a 60-year-old man, grey hair, who knew all the secrets of the building and was respected for his discretion and loyalty. "Miss Flores," he said in a low voice, looking around to make sure they were alone. "May I speak with you a moment?" "Of course, Mr. Jones," she replied, surprised by the approach. "It's about Mr. Thorne. I know it's none of my business, but I've been following everything that's happened, and there are things you need to know." Maria frowned. "What kind of things?" Mr. Jones pulled up a chair and sat next to her, his voice even lower. "I've worked here since Mr. Thorne founded the company. I've seen him build everything from scratch. I've seen where he came from. And I can guarantee that the story they tell about him isn't the whole truth." "What do you mean?" "Mr. Thorne wasn't born rich, miss. He came from a working-class neighborhood in Queens, the son of a cleaning lady and a mechanic. His mother cleaned offices at dawn, just like your mother, to pay for the boy's studies." Maria felt a shock run through her body. "That's impossible. He studied at the best schools, with scholarships, miss. The boy was a genius, but he went hungry many times. I know because my sister worked in the same cleaning company as his mother. Mrs. Carmen, who passed away 5 years ago, was a warrior." Mr. Jones's words hit Maria like lightning. "But why does he hide it?" "Because when he started to grow in the business world, he discovered that a humble origin was seen as a weakness. He invented a story about being the son of bankrupt businessmen, created a past that sounded more palatable to investors and high society." "And how do you know all this?" Mr. Jones smiled sadly. "Because I helped create that farce. In the first important meetings, he asked me to pretend to be his private driver, to give credibility to the lie. I would do anything for the boy. I saw how he suffered trying to fit into a world that would reject him if it knew the truth." Maria processed the information in shock. "But that means that you two are more alike than you think," Mr. Jones completed. "And there's more, miss. That Ashley Davenport. She knows the truth about Mr. Thorne's past." Maria's blood ran cold. "How so?" "I overheard a conversation she had on the phone last week. She was in the elevator, thinking she was alone, but I was doing maintenance. She told someone that if Lucas didn't come back to her, she would tell everyone about his humble past and how he lied about his origin." "She's blackmailing him?" Maria whispered, horrified. "Seems like it. And from what I understand, she was the one who spread the rumors about you two precisely to keep you away from him. She knows that Mr. Thorne has never been genuinely interested in any of the rich women he dated, but she saw that with you, it was different." Maria felt a mixture of anger and understanding taking over her. Everything began to make sense. Lucas's arrogance that seemed like armor, his difficulty in trusting people, the way Ashley had acted with such confidence. "Why are you telling me this, Mr. Jones?" The man sighed deeply. "Because in 15 years working here, I've never seen Mr. Thorne genuinely smile, until you appeared in his life. And because I know how to recognize good people when I see them, and you are good people, miss, just like him deep down. But what can I do with this information? Even if it's true, you can make him stop lying to himself," Mr. Jones said, getting up. "The boy is afraid that if you know where he came from, you'll think he's fake. He doesn't realize that it's precisely what you have in common that brings you closer." That night, Maria returned home with her mind in turmoil. The revelation changed everything. Lucas was not the arrogant prince from another world that she imagined. He was a boy from a working-class neighborhood who had conquered everything through hard work and sacrifice, exactly as she was trying to do. But it also meant that he had lied about who he was, had created a false persona. How could she trust someone like that? At the same time, she understood his fear. How many times had she herself felt inadequate in that environment? How many times had she tried to hide aspects of her origin to fit in? Throughout the night, she thought about the conversation with Mr. Jones. Ashley was blackmailing Lucas, using his past as a weapon. And she had used Maria as a pawn to keep him away from any possibility of genuine happiness. For the first time in weeks, Maria felt something beyond pain and humiliation. She felt determination growing in her chest. If Lucas was being manipulated and blackmailed, if Ashley had orchestrated that whole situation to separate them, then perhaps there was a way to fight back. But first, she needed to confront Lucas with the truth. She needed to know from his mouth who he really was behind the mask he wore. And she needed to decide if the man who had fallen in love with her was worth all the fight that would come ahead. Because now she knew that it wasn't just about the two of them. It was about justice, truth, and the courage to be who you really are, regardless of what the world expects. The following Friday, Maria mustered the courage to confront Lucas. She waited until the end of the day, when the 28th floor was almost empty, and went up to his office. Her heart beat erratically as she knocked on the door. "Come in," said the familiar voice from the other side. Lucas was behind the desk, his tie loosened, looking exhausted. When he saw it was her, his eyes lit up for an instant before becoming cautious. "Maria, what are you doing here?" We need to talk." "About you. About who you really are," she said, closing the door behind her. Lucas' face hardened instantly. "What are you talking about?" "I know about Queens, Lucas, about your mother, Mrs. Carmen, about your real origin." The silence that followed was deafening. Lucas stood up slowly, his face losing all color. "Who told you that? Does it matter? What matters is that you lied to me, to everyone. How can I trust someone who... You don't understand anything!" Lucas burst out, his voice laden with a pain she had never seen. "You think it was easy? You think it was simple to build all this knowing that at any moment someone could discover the truth and destroy everything? But why hide? Why be ashamed of where you came from?" "Ashamed?" Lucas laughed bitterly. "I'm proud of where I came from. I'm proud of the woman my mother was. But this world, Maria, this world that you think is just mine, this world taught me that a humble origin is weakness. That being the son of a cleaning lady is automatic disqualification. So you became exactly the kind of person who would reject you." The words hit Lucas like a slap. He turned to the window, his shoulders tense. "Maybe I did become that." "Lucas." Maria tried to approach, but he raised his hand. "You want to know the whole truth? Ashley is not just my ex-girlfriend. She's the daughter of the first investor who almost gave up on supporting my company when he found out about my origin. I dated her initially to ensure that her father wouldn't abandon me." The confession hit Maria like a punch to the stomach. "You used her?" "Just like she's using me now," Lucas said, turning around with glazed eyes. "She knows that if she tells the truth about my past, she can destroy everything I've built. The investors, the clients, everyone will question my credibility. And she's blackmailing you because of me. She's blackmailing me because she saw that with you, I was being myself for the first time in years. And that terrified her because it means she lost control over me." Maria felt tears burning her eyes. "What kind of person have you become, Lucas? What kind of man uses a woman to get money and then falls in love with another?" "The kind of man you should never love," he whispered, his voice broken. At that moment, the door opened abruptly and Ashley entered like a hurricane, followed by two men in suits that Maria didn't recognize. "What a touching scene," Ashley said, her smile venomous. "Maria, darling, how nice that you're here. You'll be able to witness everything." "Ashley, what does this mean?" Lucas asked, alarmed. "It means that enough games, darling. These are private investigators I hired. They have very interesting evidence about fraud in the initial contracts of your company. Falsified documents, false information about your education." Maria's blood ran cold. "What documents? Oh, my dear, didn't you know? Your Prince Charming not only lied about his origin, he falsified diplomas, invented professional experiences he never had. Jack Vision was built on a mountain of lies." "That's not true," Lucas said, but his voice sounded weak. "Isn't it?" Ashley laughed. "Then explain this MBA diploma from Harvard that you never attended, or these letters of recommendation from companies where you never worked." Maria looked at Lucas, searching for a denial, an explanation, anything. But what she saw in his eyes was pure guilt. "Lucas," she whispered, In the beginning, I needed to look qualified. No one would invest in a kid from Queens without a higher education. So I created some documents to get the first meetings. Some documents. Ashley guffawed. Your whole life is a lie, Lucas. And now everyone will know. What do you want? Lucas asked, defeated. I want you to marry me. A real wedding, not a facade. And I want you to send your little secretary away forever. If you do that, these documents will never see the light of day. Maria felt the world crumble around her. The man she had fallen in love with, who she thought she understood, was a complete stranger. Not only had he lied about his origin, he had built an entire career based on fraud. You have 48 hours to decide, Ashley said, heading for the door. Oh, and Maria, you should look for another job. Regardless of his decision, your career here is over. After Ashley left, Maria and Lucas remained silent for long minutes. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Who are you really, Lucas? Because now, I don't know anymore. I'm someone who made terrible choices, trying to survive in a world that would reject me if it knew the truth, he said, unable to look her in the eyes. And you keep making them, Maria replied. Are you going to marry her? Lucas was silent, and that silence was answer enough. Maria nodded slowly, the tears finally falling. I understand. You have too much to lose. I thought maybe you were brave enough to choose the truth. Maria, don't, she interrupted, heading for the door. Don't make this harder than it already is. You made your choice a long time ago. It just took me time to realize it. She left the room, leaving Lucas alone, and for the first time since she had started that journey, Maria felt that maybe love wasn't enough to overcome all barriers. Maybe some people were simply incompatible, no matter how much they loved each other. That night, on the subway back home, she looked out the window and wondered if it was worth continuing to fight for someone who had chosen to live a lie instead of fighting for the truth. The weekend passed in a haze of pain and anger. Maria barely slept, mentally replaying every moment, every conversation, trying to understand how she had been so wrong about Lucas. But on Monday morning, something had changed inside her. The pain gave way to a cold, calculated determination. She wasn't going to simply accept defeat. She arrived at work an hour early and looked for Mr. Jones, who was finishing his night shift. The man greeted her with evident concern on his face. Miss Flores, I heard Miss Davenport was here on Friday. Mr. Thorne has been a wreck ever since. Mr. Jones, I need your help. You said you know all the secrets of this building. I need to know everything about Ashley Davenport. Everything. The watchman studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. Come with me. They went down to the basement, where Mr. Jones had a small room filled with security monitors and old files. 15 years working here has taught me to keep important information, he said, opening a dusty file. Miss Davenport has an interesting history in this building. What kind of history? She's tried to blackmail other people before. 2 years ago, a financial director who discovered irregularities in her father's companies. She threatened him with compromising photos if he wouldn't be silenced. Maria felt a spark of hope. Do you have proof of that? I have security recordings. The elevator cameras capture audio too, and she didn't know. Mr. Jones fiddled with some equipment. But there's more, miss. Those documents she showed on Friday, Lucas's falsified diplomas. Falsified, yes, but not by Mr. Thorne. The man pulled out a folder. I kept copies of the original documents that the boy presented when he opened the company. They were all legitimate, just simplified. Maria frowned. How so? Mr. Thorne really studied, but at public colleges, with scholarships. He worked in smaller companies before opening TechVision. All the documents were true, just not from prestigious institutions like Harvard. So Ashley falsified documents to make him look like a fraud. Exactly. She replaced the real diplomas with fake versions from famous universities, so she could later expose that they were fake. It's a well-laid plan. Maria's mind worked quickly. But why do you have the originals? Because I always suspected her intentions. When she started getting close to Mr. Thorne years ago, I made copies of all the important documents. Old man's intuition, you know. Maria felt adrenaline coursing through her veins. That means we can prove she's lying. We can, but there's a problem. The investigators she brought are legitimate. If we present the evidence the wrong way, she can claim that we falsified the documents to defend Mr. Thorne. Then we need more than that. Mr. Jones smiled. That's why I said I needed your help. You're smart, miss. Smarter than any of those sharks up there. If anyone can find a way to take down Ms. Davenport, it's you. Throughout the morning, Maria analyzed every detail that Mr. Jones had shared. She did discreet research on Ashley, her family, her companies. Slowly, a pattern began to emerge. Ashley was not just a spoiled woman trying to win back an ex-boyfriend. She was an experienced manipulator who used blackmail and coercion to get what she wanted. But there was something more. The Medeiros family companies were facing serious financial problems. A marriage to Lucas would not only be personal, it would be an economic bailout. At 2 in the afternoon, Maria made a decision that would change everything. She called the most respected law firms in New York City, presenting herself as Lucas's assistant, and scheduled urgent meetings for that afternoon. If Ashley wanted to play dirty, she would show her what a girl from the Bronx could do when cornered. During her meetings, Maria discovered crucial information. Ashley had used similar tactics before, not only in relationships, but in business. There was a pattern of behavior that could be proven in court. When she returned to the office at 5 in the afternoon, she found Lucas coming out of the elevator. He looked devastated, as if he hadn't slept in days. Their eyes met for a moment, and she saw in them a mixture of despair and regret. "Maria," he said, his voice hoarse, "I need to talk to you. Not now, Lucas, but if you really want to talk, be in the main auditorium tomorrow at 3 in the afternoon. The auditorium? Why? Because it's time for Ashley Davenport to discover that she underestimated the wrong person. Maria stared at him with a determination that he had never seen before. And it's time for you to find out if you have enough courage to fight for the truth, or if you're going to spend the rest of your life being a hostage to your own lies. What are you talking about? You'll find out tomorrow, along with everyone else. Maria turned to leave, but stopped. Oh, and Lucas, regardless of what happens tomorrow, you need to know one thing. I fell in love with the boy from Queens, not the CEO of TechVision. The question is whether that boy still exists somewhere in there. That night, Maria worked late in her apartment, organizing evidence, preparing presentations, coordinating with the lawyers. Her mother watched her worriedly. "Honey, what's going on? You're different." "I'm preparing for the fight of my life, Mom, and this time, I'm going to fight by the right rules." When she finally went to bed, at 3 in the morning, Maria knew that the next day would define not only her future with Lucas, but who she really was. She had spent her life being underestimated because of her origin. Now it was time to show that girls from the Bronx also knew how to play the elite's game. And she was ready to win. On Tuesday, at 3 in the afternoon, the main auditorium of TechVision was packed. Maria had called a clarification meeting on behalf of Lucas, inviting all employees, directors, and curiously, some journalists specializing in economics. Ashley arrived beaming, thinking that she would witness Lucas's public destruction. Lucas entered visibly nervous, not understanding what was happening. When he saw Ashley in the front row, next to the private investigators, his face paled. Maria took the stage with a folder in her hands and a determination that made the auditorium go silent instantly. "Good afternoon, everyone. I know you're wondering why you're here. You're here because the truth matters, and because some people thought they could destroy lives using lies." She activated the projector, showing the first image, a photo of Lucas at 18, receiving a diploma from a public university. This is Lucas Thorne, not the billionaire CEO, you know, but the young man who left Queens with a scholarship and a dream. Son of Carmen Santos, cleaning lady, and John Thorne, mechanic. A young man who built everything you have here through hard work and intelligence. Ashley squirmed uncomfortably in her chair. Maria, what do you think you're doing? I'm telling the truth, Ashley. Something you couldn't stand to hear. Maria changed the slide, showing Lucas's original documents. These are Lucas's real diplomas. Public university, computer engineering course, graduated with honors. No Harvard, no international MBA, just a brilliant young man who needed to work during college to support himself. Lucas looked at the screen in shock, seeing his true story being exposed publicly for the first time. But there are people in this room who can't accept that someone from a working-class neighborhood can be so successful, Maria continued. People who prefer to destroy rather than accept reality. She clicked to the next slide, the security recordings that Mr. Jones had provided. These are recordings from the last 2 years, showing Ashley Davenport in various attempts to blackmail employees of this company and other people. Ashley's voice echoed through the auditorium, clear and incriminating as she threatened the financial director years before. This is an invasion of privacy, Ashley shouted, standing up. This is evidence of a crime, Maria replied calmly. But the best is yet to come. She then showed the falsified documents that Ashley had presented as Lucas's, side by side with the originals. Ashley not only tried to blackmail Lucas with documents that she herself falsified, but she did it because her family is on the verge of bankruptcy and desperately needs his money. A murmur spread through the auditorium. The private investigators looked at each other, clearly realizing that they had been deceived. Do you know why I know all this? Maria asked, her voice becoming more emotional. Because I'm also from a working-class neighborhood. I also come from a humble family. And because I understand the fear that Lucas felt of being rejected for his origin. She turned to Lucas, who was watching her with tears in his eyes. But the difference between us, Lucas, is that I've never been ashamed of who I am. And you shouldn't have been either. Your origin is not your weakness, it's your greatest strength. Ashley tried to head for the exit, but found security guards blocking the way. The lawyers that Maria had contacted entered the auditorium. Ashley Davenport, one of them said, you are being formally charged with blackmail, forgery of documents, and attempted extortion, as Ashley was escorted out. Shouting threats and protests, Lucas took the stage. The auditorium was in total silence. Maria is right, he said, his voice trembling but clear. I lied about who I was, not because I wasn't proud of my origin, but because I was afraid. Afraid that you wouldn't trust me, afraid of not being accepted in this world. He turned to Maria, but this extraordinary woman taught me that the truth is always more powerful than any lie. And she taught me that true love accepts who we really are, not who we pretend to be. Lucas took the microphone and addressed the auditorium. I'm Lucas Thorne, son of a cleaning lady and a mechanic from Queens. I built this company with honest work and a lot of sweat. And I fell in love with the most courageous woman I've ever met, who risked everything to save not only my company, but my soul. He knelt before Maria, in front of everyone. Maria Flores, you taught me to have the courage to be who I really am. You taught me that our value doesn't come from where we were born, but from who we choose to be. Will you spend the rest of your life teaching me to be a better man? Maria looked at the man kneeling before her, finally seeing not the intimidating CEO, but the brave boy who had left his working-class neighborhood to conquer the world. Tears ran freely down her face as she whispered, "Yes." The auditorium erupted in applause. Mr. Jones, watching from the entrance, smiled proudly. Rosa, who had been secretly invited by Maria, cried with emotion in the last row. 6 months later, TechVision had become an example of a socially responsible company, offering scholarships to young people from working-class neighborhoods. Lucas and Maria, now married, shared not only a life but a mission to prove that true love transcends any social barrier, and that the courage to be authentic is the greatest strength anyone can have. The story of the assistant who called the CEO sexy and arrogant became a legend in the company. But more than that, it became proof that sometimes the greatest loves are born from the smallest misunderstandings, and that the truth, as frightening as it seems, always sets us free. Dear listeners, we hope that Maria and Lucas's journey has touched you deeply. To continue this emotional journey through stories that celebrate courage, true love, and the strength of those who never give up on their dreams, we have prepared a special playlist with equally captivating narratives. Find it by clicking to your left. If this story of overcoming and love has inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life, the power of truth, and the beauty of new beginnings. Don't miss our upcoming content that promises to move and inspire. We look forward to seeing you in the comments, sharing your own stories of courage and transformation.